Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Groundbreak 2021 session, where we'll be discussing the stigma around pursuing a career in the trades. My name is Chandler Brooks, the head of industry partnerships and alliances here at Procore, and I will be moderating a discussion with our distinguished panelists, Angie Hart, Vice President at Rosendin Electric, and Brian Tremail, Vice President of Public Affairs and Strategic Initiatives at the Associated General Contractors of America, or more commonly known as the AGC. Thank you both for being here today. Angie and Brian bring with them a wealth of experience on the topic of addressing the labor shortage in construction right now. And we'll be sharing ideas, information, and experience to help all of us think creatively about how we can address it more effectively. And our goal is, by the end of our session, we'll have some good ideas about how we can influence and change the stigma around a career in the trades. A little preview for the audience on what we'll be discussing. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll explore how we can reframe the reality of what working in construction looks like, highlighting becoming a specialty contractor as a clear entrepreneurial career path, and how to improve recruitment efforts to build your funnel for talent. The panelists today each have their own unique experiences and stories about finding their way to construction, and I myself will touch on it briefly to kick us off. When I was in second grade, the elementary school teacher asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up. The majority of the boys would say they wanted to be professional baseball players. Clearly, their heroes were professional sports members. Not shocking. Well, I wanted to be a carpenter. I grew up in a house of do-it-yourselfers, constantly modifying and changing the 1920s home that my parents and my family lived in to suit our obvious growth. Fast forward to my college-bound years, and when I was asked by a family friend, I told them I wanted to do something like carpentry or building. But what did they say to me? They said, "Oh, you want to be an architect." And so that's what I went to school for. Historic architecture is what I studied. 2 years after post-recession, I found my way to a GC and now here at Procore. There were two key moments in my life, an opportunity for someone to advise and guide me to a place where I ultimately ended up and where I felt like I belonged. The trades were seemingly skipped over and influenced because of what I can only perceive as a stigma around being in the trades as a career option. I'm sure each of you in the audience are reflecting on your own journeys. It's not much of a straight line, is it? Well, I'm going to turn now to Angie and Brian to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their journeys into construction. Angie, let's start with you. Tell us about your role at Rosendin and your path to where you are today.
So I am Vice President of Operations on the West Coast for Rosendin Electric. And I got into the industry kind of by accident. I graduated from high school and was looking for a job. And so I had taken typing in school, and I went to a temporary agency and asked them to look for a job. So they actually gave me a job at Rosendin Electric as the receptionist. And I started as a receptionist there and slowly got interested in the company and moved up to being an administrative assistant. And when I was administrative assistant, somebody pulled me aside because I happened at the time to be pricing material vouchers and labor vouchers and said, "Do you want to know what this material is that you're pricing?" And so we had stock. And so he took me out to our warehouse and showed me couplings and connectors and different types of pipe. And that kind of just intrigued me and led to my interest. And so I continued a little bit further and moved up slowly in the company. So one day when somebody said after I was here about 2 years, "Do you want to make this a career?" And I'm like, I really enjoy it. Like, I think it's a great opportunity. There obviously were challenges, but I decided that I would make it a career for myself. And now, 31 years later, I've been at Rosendin for 31 years, and now I'm a vice president of operations.
What a fun journey. I mean, it sounds like that was a path, and 31 years later, wow, congratulations for gosh, what a cool story. Brian, how about yourself?
My path into construction. Well, obviously I'm in a construction association, so I just don't want to give anyone the impression that I would be someone who could actually go out and do any kind of construction work. Because when I do sheetrock work, the mudding looks like a topographical map of the Grand Canyon. But I think the path that led me here, I guess when I was in high school, my mom owned a number of rental properties, and my brother and I became the default maintenance crew for her rental properties. And so we were self-taught, underperforming home improvement contractors in that way. But after college, I actually got into. I was a teacher right after college. I taught second grade. Um, your story about you in second grade made me remember that, and then from there, that was in public relations, and ended up working as a federal doing public relations for the federal government. 'Cause I live in DC, right? And I ended up working in the U.S. Department of Transportation, which happens to run the nation's largest federally funded construction program in the highway and transit infrastructure program. And then at some point in the very end of 2008, happened to a friend of a friend knew of a position at the Associated General Contractors, and so I was in there. And it didn't take long after getting, obviously when I got to AGC, we were at the sort of front end of we kind of refer to as the construction depression, right? So for the first 3 years, our biggest worry was what can we do to make sure our members have enough work? And then almost continuously since then, we've been focused on what can we do to help our members find enough workers to do the work that's out there. And it reminded me of my teaching experiences. And I was in an elementary through middle school, but nowhere in at least DC public schools, and certainly nowhere in when I was in school, which was a long time ago, was anyone out there saying, "Hey, you ought to think about a career in construction. That this is a craft to pursue." And instead, we have this mentality in public education in this country that there is one path to success, and that path leads from kindergarten to 12th grade to 4-year college to an office job. And look, I'm sitting in an office right now, so life is good. But the problem is that when we tell students there's only one path to success, and that path doesn't feel right to them, and I know we'll get into this, then we're setting them up for failure because they think, wow, I don't like that path, but that's the path they told me I need to go. I want to go a different path. That must mean I'm not a winner in our structure. And we've done ourselves as a society a huge disservice by doing that. And we've certainly done our industry an enormous disservice because we have so many people who might actually love the idea of working with their hands and having a different challenge and not being stuck in a fluorescent lit office every day, wonderfully wired for electricity by firms like Rosendin. But nonetheless, they might want a different path, and we should offer that to them. And so that's really kind of been interesting to be on the association side, but sort of mix of the advocacy work we do for the industry, and sort of it ties back some of the experiences I had as a teacher, a not very successful teacher, mind you, but a teacher nonetheless. So that answers your question.
Yeah, it does actually, and it segues perfectly into the question I was going to ask. And I think you've shared a pretty strong perspective from your view. And Angie, I'd love to hear what you think about what you believe are some of the causes, the root causes as to why trades are shorthanded right now, and have been honestly for a while. And what do you think has kind of led to getting us in this situation? Angie, what are your thoughts on that?
So from a perspective of project management, for us, it's the great demand from the general contractors. The general contractors are actually kind of getting first look, or when kids do go to college and get into college in construction management, they're kind of led down the path that you're doing this to become an employee of a construction, a general contractor. And so that's a challenge for us, is that a lot of the college students are focused on the general contractors. So that's a challenge that we're trying to overcome by trying to find different streams of employees versus just the construction management college path.
So kind of on that thread, how do we reframe, at the moment it matters, the entering of the trades as a role, or becoming a specialty contractor versus a general contractor as another option in addition to, or maybe as a substitute to college? Because it sounds like maybe some of them are going to programs in college that are gearing them toward a general contractor. But let's say before that point, that decision point, how would you recommend that reframing or that sharing of a perspective as a trade, as an opportunity, as equal as a substitute or possibly even as a better option for a student aspiring to find a career path. Well, how would you recommend a reframing of that, uh, Angie? Oh, I'm sorry. It was for Angie. I thought I was on a good thread there. So yeah, go ahead, Angie. I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Um, well, for myself, I've been really trying to find different avenues to work with in our industry to get that word out there. I'm a member of Electri, and they are working on a program to um, send kits and information into the grade schools just to start to get that flow of information started at a younger age. Um, and get the kids to start thinking about construction again as an option. I do think that when they took out a lot of the vocational programs in schools and high schools, that whole concept of working with your hands, doing that became a little bit more unacceptable. I know when I graduated from high school and then decided to take a little break, my mom was constantly on me about, you need to go back to college, you need to go back, you need to go back. And I did go back for a little over a year, but I found that I really didn't need it, at least at Rosenden, for me to be successful. There was other things. I was eager to learn. I wanted to absorb information. And so I do think that that's something that we're kind of focusing on a little bit at Rosenden, that it doesn't necessarily need to be a college education. In the same breath, we're trying to just promote the industry through kids at a younger age, through, we have a Rosenden Foundation that created a coloring book. And so at Christmas time, when we donate gifts to different charitable causes, we include this coloring book. And the coloring book is all about being an electrician or a project manager and, talking through kids' eyes and being excited about the fact that my mommy's or my daddy is an electrician or they're a project manager, and just taking the stigma out a little bit of what people think the industry is.
That's great. So this positive association earlier, obviously, with, hey, there's some pride, there's some respect. My mom is in the trades, and this is what she does. And then also, it sounds like, the requirements of a role, a successful career path, aren't necessarily contingent on a college degree. It seems like those two things could possibly start to reframe and reassess what folks think are required. So Brian, from your perspective, association, we know that's kind of your background here. What do you think? What do you think would be kind of a reframing suggestion there?
Well, we're in Washington, right? And we think a lot about how decisions made by federal officials have an impact on really sort of the country and popular perceptions of careers, right? And one of the things that is troubling to us is the significant funding gap between federal investments in kind of this traditional sort of pre-K through college path versus federal investments in things like career and technical education, which would be the pathway for careers in construction. Right now, the federal government spends, for every $6 the federal government spends to encourage and support children on their pathway into a four-year college, they only spend $1 on career and technical education. So that's a 6-to-1 ratio, 120 billion versus 20 billion, despite the fact that only about a third of U.S. jobs currently require a four-year degree. So we have this funding gap, and that's a problem for a couple of reasons. Angie mentioned, and I mentioned that there are far too few students who are going through our schools who are ever exposed to the fact that construction is even a career choice, right? They're not, unfortunately, TV shows about construction. We certainly set it up so that we've signaled to families and we've signaled to counselors and we've signaled to teachers that construction is not a path. The federal government literally isn't investing in it. There aren't many funds available to set up construction-focused programs in our schools, so students aren't exposed that way. And that sends a pretty loud signal to caregivers, to parents, aunts, uncles, that if when Junior or Juniette comes home and says, I want to work in construction, that more often than not, that kitchen table conversation is, No, you need to go to college. You need to get an office job. Of course, you're not going to work in construction. If construction were important, the feds would be investing more in construction paths, right? We'd have more construction programs. So when you look at the finances of the issue, the fact that the average construction job in the United States pays 10% more than the average job in the United States, the fact that most career paths in construction don't require students to accumulate a lot of college debt first, it's kind of a no-brainer that would be at least on the menu for many young adults. But we don't have it on there because of this sort of broader cultural shift that's taken place over the last 30, 40 years that's either encouraged or been vetted by the fact that the federal government is putting its money in telling everyone to go to college. So we've been working really hard to address that funding imbalance in Washington, because we think that will have the biggest potential impact, especially if we can get more high school students exposed to careers in construction. And then we've been trying to fill the federal gap in the meantime by finding ways to reach young adults, finding ways to reach their caregivers and their influencers with messages about the career opportunities that exist in construction and the benefits that work in construction. And that's through our Construction is Essential targeted digital advertising. It's the same essentially technology that, say Zappos uses to sort of bombard you with ads for that pair of shoes you were on the online browsing thinking about a couple of weeks ago. Chandler, I know you're a shoe guy, but we use the same technology to basically identify people who are considering careers in construction, and then not only send messages and ads to them, but to the people in their household, right? So that by the time they have that kitchen table conversation, that, mom and dad or aunt and uncle, it's funny, I just saw something online about how much money you can make in construction, or that construction isn't just holding a hammer, it might be holding an iPad, or that's one of the quickest paths to leadership and a career path that anyone can take. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, is fill this gap until we can successfully fight for more federal funds so that we can give children multiple pathways to success.
Well, it sounds like what you've described is very macro, right? Like you're creating the environment where social proof happens naturally. I just saw it. I just experienced it. This ad popped up. It's so interesting. I'm a huge kind of nerd for behavioral science and how people think, and it is a hackable system. You can actually influence behavior subconsciously without necessarily being aware, right? Subconscious means you just sort of happens underneath. But the maybe a measure of success there could be the kitchen room table conversation. Always sort of lean toward no, that's not going to work for you. And I don't know how many movies I've seen where that exact scene is played out very clearly. No, to be successful must go to college. But imagine a measure of success that the conversation goes more toward, well, let's talk about that as an option. Let's at least put them on the same table. It's not just, scrape it off right away. So let's talk specifically about an example that Rosenden, Angie, if you might want to share, how would you identify as a company that's looking for new candidates, looking for new employees, what are the pathways that Rosenden has laid for kind of encouraging and getting a pool of talent to come through your doors?
So we're trying to reach out to a couple other avenues of talent for bringing in new people. I mean, we always will probably continue to use the construction management programs and career fairs that we attend, but we've started to reach out into community colleges. I mean, there are a massive amount of students that attend community college that are using it as a stepping stone a lot of times to finish a 4-year degree, but why not get in and connect with them where once they're done with their 2-year degree, they can start earning money right away. Because we've created a program within our company that we call an accelerated learning program, where we bring people in that don't have 4-year college degrees and put them through a 48-week program. And at the end of that 48 weeks, they are fairly equivalent, if not as equivalent as a 4-year college graduate coming into our company, and know actually a little bit more about our company because of the program that we put them through. So we've gone and taught classes in community colleges. I think that's a great way to get to know the professors and some of the students. So we'll go out and teach a class, or we'll even just do a demonstration on exciting things about construction so people can see a little bit more about it. We're also not only focused on construction students. I mean, we are focused on the everyday person. I mean, I like to go out and be talking to people and tell my story. And it could be the person who does your coffee at Starbucks. It could be your neighbor's child or your best friend's cousin or whatever. You're just talking to them and they talk about being interested and they don't know what they can do. I feel like I'm just a big salesperson for our company and trying to get them in the door. And one of the things we even talked about with our program is, our employees probably are the best ones to actually bring candidates to us for the program, right? Because they've been here, they love it here, they love our culture, they know if these people are going to fit to come to us. But we're open to lots of different avenues. And like I said, the biggest one right now we see is the community college avenue, because there are thousands of students in thousands of community colleges across the U.S. that are eager to work. They just either haven't decided what they want to do, or they're there as a stepping stone to a four-year college. And so if we can get them and say, hey, you can come work for us, and that debt you were going to have for 2 more years isn't going to be there for you. I mean, it seems like a really good sales point.
Yeah, and certainly they understand by then what it's like to, have to be on your own and fund your own college education. I want to just pull on that thread a little bit more. So this 48-week program you mentioned, different sources, community college is a real great place. Also, the barista at your Starbucks might be a good candidate for this program. What happens after that program, after that 48 weeks? Are they more aware of what they think they may want to do then, or is it kind of still trial at that time? What are some examples that you could share from people who've made it through the program?
So the ultimate goal of the program is to create assistant project managers that can then become project managers. But we rotate them through all of our different departments within our company. That's part of the 48 weeks. They'll work in purchasing. They'll work sometime in our accounting department. They'll work in our engineering group. They will rotate around to different departments, as well as at the same time we're teaching them how to estimate. But they get exposure to a lot of different departments. So if they decide they're in estimating and they don't want to leave estimating, then we'll let them stay in estimating. If they decide that they hang out in engineering for 8 weeks and they're like, gosh, I really like it in engineering, maybe I would further my degree in engineering, or maybe I just can be a CAD drafter in engineering because I've learned that while I was in engineering. It just opens their eyes to several opportunities, because again, I think sometimes when we say construction or we say the trades, people are thinking I have a hammer, or they think I'm sitting in an office, project management. But I mean, we have a ton of different roles within a subcontractor's office that touch on a lot of things.
So let's go macro again here, Brian. I want to ask you this: if you're thinking about AGC, and I know they represent just a huge population of contractors, both general contractor and specialty. Have you done any surveys, or is there any data that kind of shows where some of these efforts that you've discussed are having an impact? Any metrics that prove that, hey, I think we're headed in the right direction, or anything that's pointing us to where we probably should go next for talent pipeline?
We do have survey data. I'm not sure that the survey data is telling us we're heading in the right direction. In fact, we just released our annual workforce shortage survey, and 89% of contractors are telling us that they're having a hard time finding qualified workers to hire. So that's not telling us we're in the good direction. But to pick up on Angie's thread a little bit, one of the things that we've seen is we completely agree that community colleges and those sort of career technical colleges are an enormous sort of untapped potential. And we've been spending a lot of time trying to catalog and share with our members and chapters around the country some of those community college programs that are particularly cutting edge and successful. I don't don't want to leave anyone out that may have other great programs, but a couple that come to mind is Central Arizona College in Casa Grande, Arizona, Metro Community College in Omaha, Southeast Tech up in Sioux Falls. Everyone knows Pittsburgh State in Kansas, but these are all really innovative community college programs that have built strong working partnerships with our members. I mean, one of the things that we've been telling, and Angie knows this, Rosendin has figured this out already, is that the solution to workforce challenges is going to require firms to play a more active role in that workforce development, right? They've gone out, they've created an apprenticeship program, they're working with schools. And the programs that really work at the community college level are ones where firms have come in and helped craft those programs and really kind of revamp those programs. So like a Central Arizona College went from 4 people in their construction program to 500 people on overcapacity, right, with a waiting list to get in there. And that's because the members came in and got involved, donated the equipment, brought on the successful students as internships, and made that program attractive. Same thing where you look. And we want to catalog that information, and we want to share it with other, our member firms around the country or chapters around the country. And then there's a group called the League for Innovation, which actually works within community colleges. We're working with them so that they can share to community college leaders around the country who are thinking, hey, I've got this moribund program. How do I fix it up? They can share these success stories and turn construction programs into profit centers for community colleges. And the other reason why we like community colleges, we've got this problem with not enough high school CTE programs. A lot of those successful community colleges are bringing in hundreds, if not thousands, of high school students every year and exposing them to careers in construction. They've become that default CTE program at the high school level. And because of the kind of quirks and teacher certification rules, it's really easier for many construction firms to have one of their sort of craft instructors co-teaching or teaching at the community college, even for high school students, than at the high school level, where they're not going to be certified to be a teacher, right? So it gives us a lot more flexibility. I do think it's a great potential. So anecdotally, yes, we see great success stories. Macro data, I guess the other, I'll try to leave it optimistic. A growing percentage of our member firms tell us that they're getting involved in increasing their training investments, that they're getting involved in working with workforce development programs to kind of create new models, and that they're using new types of technology to recruit and track employees, things like Instagram Live and that kind of thing, to really sort of be out there and expand their presence. So like a lot of problems, public policy problems our country faces, the solution is likely not to come from Washington. It's going to come from places like Rosendin and all over the country, and then Washington will follow suit. So we're kind of twin tracking it, right? We're sharing those success stories and trying to have resources to help our members succeed. And at the same time, we're pushing Washington to get in the game.
That's fantastic. And it leads very well into, I think, final thoughts here. Angie, you represent an example of a lot of the folks in the audience right now that are probably thinking, what is my next step? What do I do? I hear from Brian, there's a lot of resources, large organizations, centralized organizations, places like DC, but that might not be, the right place for me to begin my journey. Maybe it starts a little more local. Just kind of final thoughts from you, Angie, on what would you recommend to organizations like yours or others that are looking to kind of figure this out for themselves?
I think involvement. I think that you need to kind of be an advocate for your company. You need to be an advocate for construction. That's one of the reasons I love to get involved in lots of different NECA, Electri, community colleges, to just get involved, to bring people in, to tell them this is great. We got feedback one time from a panel. We had a panel of people, and they were in front of a whole bunch of college students, and they said, well, what would it take to get you college students to be interested in construction? And they were like, to just hear stories of success, to see people of like kind, to just have motivational talks about what it is that, makes the company tick, or your culture or whatever. And so just for me, a company can get involved. It doesn't have to be on the large scale that Rosendin's involved in. I think even smaller companies can get involved at a smaller degree, I would say intern programs are awesome. You can start out, small, but those students go back to college or they go back even to community college. I mean, bring an intern in from a community college. It doesn't have to be an intern from a four-year college. And they will be a billboard for your company. I mean, they talk about how great their experience was. If they had a great experience, bring them in, make them have a great experience, and they can help spread the word that we're looking for people and what a great industry it is to work in.
Fantastic advice. And I think that's all very achievable at all kind of levels. Well, look, I want to personally thank both of you for the generous offer of your time and the expertise on this very important topic. Angie, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today to discuss this.
Thank you for having me. I had an awesome time and I would love to share more information.
Likewise, thank you so much. And, enjoy that you guys are raising this very important issue, and we're happy to share whatever and all resources we've got.
All right, we very much appreciate it. And to the audience, you likely realize that, look, this is a huge undertaking, but understand it took several generations to develop the perception that college is the only path to success, as analogous to the use of a hammer, as we talked about, is to the success of driving a nail into a board. It's going to probably take time. But you know what? The insights and the ideas we shared together today from the panelists, hopefully you do see that there are bright spots, there's opportunities, there's ideas. Sharing stories and successes is really going to help renew the perspective on the potential the trades have to a really promising career path and honestly, a high quality of life. We hope you've enjoyed today's session, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you.